skills as a producer to really bring it together. And that's essentially what we do at Luminous Studios for our clients too. We create videos, but we're very strategic about them. What are they for? What are the goals? Where will they live? And who is your audience? So with all that said, I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of what we're going to go over today. So the idea today is to see, in this very interesting time of the pandemic, and the idea that, the ability to leave our homes and to do a lot of things the way we used to isn't really available. What type of content can we make at home, and how can we use that content better and more effectively? So I'm going to focus on what we call talking head videos. You probably use them for video calls, virtual presentations. Some of the tips I'm going to share you can use in situations like this if you're doing a webinar or a panel, but also so you can kind of create some of your own branded content. They can be videos about your product or service, but they can also be insights you want to share with your target consumer. And I think thinking about that content, especially right now, is really important. So we're going to go over some of the current trends we're seeing right now amid the pandemic and how that's affecting consumption. We're going to talk a little bit about two important questions of what's the goal with your video and where should you put it. And then the bulk of the presentation is really going to revolve around tangible tips and ways you can really apply specific things to the content you create at home in a very easy way. And this will help elevate your content to make it more engaging, to have people view it all the way through. And then I'll end with a few tools that you can use, resources, equipment that you might have at home, or free resources online that can just help you have a little bit more fun with the videos you create. Okay, so some trends. I won't walk through all of the specific ones. You guys can kind of read them on the screen, but the idea is that in the last 5 months, consumption online is probably at the highest it's been in our time. And the projections for the future are just that much higher. We're watching almost 100 minutes of video content a day. So those, video, especially video marketing, has kind of been this buzzword in the last 5 to 10 years. We all know that Google, Facebook, all these search algorithms rank video higher than text or images, but the consumption of it is just getting greater with time. And what's interesting right now during the pandemic, if you think about it, is our opportunities to reach our consumers are pretty much limited to digital, right? So no one's really driving anymore. You're not seeing as many billboards. You're not maybe commuting, so you're maybe not listening to the radio. So certain forms of marketing are becoming a little bit more obsolete. So this statistic that 93% of businesses have been getting new customers from posting videos on social media is really telling to me, because right now that's really the only way you can connect with your end user, consumer, client, what have you. And then this other statistic about just mobile video viewing being kind of the main way you have users viewing their content is really important when it comes to how you're going to make your video, and just sort of the technical aspects of it. Because you want to, a lot of times we make everything on our laptop, even something as simple as like an email campaign, but we forget that it's going to be viewed on mobile. And if you don't make that correct first impression, someone will probably just delete your email or scroll through your video or anything like that. So it's it's important to remember, transitioning between the two. Okay, so let's jump right in. So these are kind of the two important questions we ask all of our clients when we're starting a project. And pretty much if you're making any piece of marketing, you should be asking these questions. So what's your goal and who's your audience? What are you trying to do with the video? Will help you determine where you should put it. Are you trying to generate sales? Are you trying to build brand awareness? Those are two, different goals. So for example, something like Instagram is great for B2C businesses and brands, but if you're B2B like us, Instagram is really only valuable to build our brand awareness, but it's going to be pretty challenging for us to convert and get a customer from Instagram. Who is your audience then is a really important question. Is it someone who's, 16 to 25, or are they over 40? So, Facebook has an older demographic, but if you're trying to get someone who's 16 years old, you probably should be on TikTok and Snapchat right now. So that's going to help you determine, once you figure out your goal and then who it is you're targeting, you can figure out what platform is best for you. Having said that, one thing I do like to mention, if you're just starting out and you're just starting to create content, think of your primary platform, but if you're active on everything, just post your content on everything. And use whatever your goal is as your primary measurement. So what I mean by that is, if I think that, I'm selling a shoe, so I want to be on Instagram because it's a nice, shoe, comfortable for walking during the pandemic, and I'm going to push that, and that's my push right now. And I'm going to make a video about that. I want to make it keeping Instagram in mind, and all the specs and everything should be tailored to Instagram. But if I have social media profiles everywhere else, I may as well put that content out there just so I can be active on everything. But now when it comes to measurement, which is my next question, what should you be measuring? I would focus on measuring your primary platform, which is Instagram. So don't be disheartened if you're not seeing any traction on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. And just focus on one primary platform that serves your main business goal. Now, when it comes to metrics, I would, I'm definitely someone who likes to be very transparent about how things work. So I would say, look at engagement and don't look at numbers or followers. So I have a lot of clients who come to us and, they want, oh, we want to get to 1 million followers on Instagram, or we want to get, these really lofty numbers. But if you look at any of their single posts, whether it's video, a GIF, any sort of IG story, TV, they have very few views. So if you have 1 million followers, but you're only getting like 100 views on your content, it's really not as valuable as having 100 followers and getting 95 views or likes on your content. So to me, if you're starting out, if you're making content at home, even if you're seasoned in your business and you're just trying to do these marketing tactics from home, definitely focus on engagement, because those are people that will buy your product, will listen to what you're saying and remember you. Otherwise, they're just vanity metrics, and it's really not worth you paying attention to them. Okay, and now I'm going to just jump right into the tips. So these are, I tried to get really specific here. I really want you guys to be able to apply this stuff when you go and film your own content. So first thing to think about are backgrounds. And this is really easy. It's about finding just the right corner of your home, something with some texture, pull in some plants, pull in some bookshelves. If you have a window that can be off center, that's always great. Just get creative. I always find like frames or paintings are nice. You basically don't want a blank, plain white wall. This just makes the visual more warm. It makes it more inviting. And again, you want people to engage with your content. You want them to, be interested in what you're saying, but you are telling a visual story at the end of the day. So you want it to just be appealing aesthetically.
So is that why like all news outlets, Zoom calls have bookshelves in them?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we add backgrounds to our Zoom conversations, because you want it to look inviting. You want it to look
Okay.
But exactly.
Because I've just noticed everyone has a white bookshelf. I thought it was a Zoom background because I'm like, does everybody have a white bookshelf? I don't have a white bookshelf. Maybe I need to get a white bookshelf.
Maybe that's essential to no, that's actually true though. I mean, it's funny when we're filming like brand, like content for high level brands, it literally comes down to just grabbing everyday items, books, a coffee mug that has the right color, and it just creates the scene, and you'll notice a big difference between the two. And in the virtual world, it's definitely a new trend right now. So keep that in mind for sure. So once you find a background, you find a nice little corner of your home, think of how you're going to frame yourself. So here's a great example. You never want to be up against a wall, and that to a blank wall. You always want to create some distance between you or whoever the subject is and your background. I would say, you're at home, at least try to have maybe 4 feet from whatever's behind you to where you're sitting. And that creates, you can see in the top picture, this nice little warm effect. It blurs out the background and adds some texture, some interest, and then it also makes you pop, right? So you separating yourself from the background helps highlight you and what you're saying more. Again, easy things just to keep in mind when you're setting up your camera or your device that you're recording on. Eye level. So it's always good to keep your device at the correct eye level. You don't want to be looking up at your device. You don't want it like this, or you don't want it like this where you're cut off. You want to make sure you're kind of staring front and center into the camera. Use things like books, a stool, a table, anything like that to adjust it to make sure that it looks like you're talking to your viewer. And get rid of your thumbnail. So if you're doing something virtual like this, or even if you're just recording your video and it's the portion that, you know, is the talking head and you're kind of giving snippets of what you're doing, get rid of your thumbnail, because we all love staring at ourselves during presentations and videos. You want to keep adjusting, you know, your hair or your shirt or make sure everything looks good. So once you start, get rid of that so you can just look dead center into the camera.
I never would have thought that, but that's a great tip.
Yeah, especially right now.
Very distracting.
Especially right now, for sure. So you're framed up, you've placed your camera, you've got a nice background. Now when you're choosing, you know, how to put yourself in the frame, I would say try to always be very intentional with where you want to be. Usually we say it's nice to be off-centered, so pick the right or left of the screen. If you have a friend, a roommate, a partner, someone in your home who's assisting you with this, maybe have them sit and prompt questions to you so it can kind of feel like a natural conversation. And, you know, it just kind of creates this nice warmth again, and it makes it more authentic. You know, we don't want to be like robots with, oh, we've memorized exactly what we're going to say. We want to be really honest in our answers. That's what's going to resonate with people. So we find that, you know, not being dead center is always a good rule, unless of course it's intentional with an aesthetic. So if you see this last picture I shared, you know, she's dead center because we had this cool pop color background, and that's really what we were trying to do. And this was a very direct pitch where we wanted to talk and be bold with the viewer. So once you know your intention, you can pick which format you're going to do. And then of course the exception is if you're doing, you know, Snapchat, IGTV, IG stories, you're vertical and you'll have to be centered, and that's totally okay. But this is for more of your, you know, traditional viewing on YouTube, website viewing, stuff like that. You want to always keep the rule of thirds in mind. Headspace. You don't want to, like I said, you don't want to be like too far up so it's awkward and strange, and you don't want to cut yourself off. So you want to just have the right amount of space. We tend to say that's 4 fingers worth, put 4 fingers above your head, and that's kind of where you want to settle in on. So that's just an easy thing. So once you're all framed up and ready, just go like this, and whoever's watching your camera, if you're watching it yourself, just set it up accordingly. Lighting. So this sometimes is a tough one to do at home. We say, I mean, and this is very true of all types of branded content, natural light is your best friend. We love shooting with natural light. It's always better. It's more beautiful. It adds a nice level of warmth. As you can see in this photo, that's all natural light. Try to place yourself in a position where the natural light's either coming on you or it's somewhat off-centered in your background, like this image here. So big windows are great. If you have an apartment or a space where you don't have access to a lot of light or windows, then just try to make sure your light source isn't behind you, because then you'll get backlit and you'll get darkened and your background will get overexposed. So always put the lights behind your camera or wherever you're filming on. So that's just something, again, to keep in mind. The lights you can use can be a lamp, it could be whatever you have at home, but just try to place it so it's shining behind the camera and not behind you. Let's see, color, this is my favorite one. So color is a fun one because this is where you can really make your video stand out, but it also helps carry through kind of your brand voice and the style of video that you want. So you want to think about colors. So sometimes you want to, consider your brand colors, and maybe that's really what you want to highlight. So you want things in the background, maybe what you're wearing, to all kind of match that same color tone. We try to think of using like the work we make, we like things that are bright, uplifting, really warm. So we like to use a pop of color. So if the background is really earthy toned, we want to use either contrasting or complementing color to really have the subject highlighted in the frame. Usually what I say is like, you can literally look at a color wheel and choose either a complementary color, or which is right to the right or the left of whatever your primary color is. So let's say there's blue in the background. On the color wheel, pick whatever is right or the left and wear something in that color, or something bang opposite. So right across the color wheel, do something really poppy and contrasting. It just really depends on your brand tone. Which one? Do you want to be more on the warmer side, or do you really want to pop and be bold? But think about that when it comes to clothing. And also wear what feels comfortable, but try your best to not wear whites, blacks, anything shiny, or anything with a pattern. Cameras just don't like those. So that's like a great rule of thumb. It's just the camera doesn't pick up on those colors well. It makes it really drab. And again, unless it's really intentional, you'll see a lot of videos where people are intentionally in all white with an all white background or all black. That's a different story. But when you're making stuff at home and you know you're featured in the piece, you want to try and avoid all of that so it's not distracting to the viewer. Let's see. Audio. So this is really important, especially today with the type of content that people are producing and video calls, virtual calls. So you want to make sure you get clean audio. Now, the way to do that without having a lot of fancy equipment is obviously use headphones if you can. Wireless are great. But sometimes if your camera or your device is to be further away from you, I would say nix the headphones, but make sure you check your volume. Oftentimes we feel like we just want to make it really, really loud. But if you do that, that creates an echo, right? So you want to keep it at kind of the 75% mark. And this is a big one. Mute your devices. I know the iPhone has do not disturb on laptop, but whatever device you have, shut off. Like you don't want your email notifications popping in or your alerts popping in and those annoying sounds coming in. So make sure whatever devices are around are muted and you don't have those distractions. Because once those pop in, you have to like start recording everything over again. Not worth the time. Let's see. Okay, so this is one of those things if you want to really go the extra mile with your content. So like I said, a lot of the tips I've shared you can use for virtual sessions, presentations, video calls. You can use it to kind of share insight or tips. But if you really want to create your at-home, product video or service video, having this type of, the action and product shots really what helps the viewer relate to your product and breaks the monotony of you just talking to your end user or potential customer. So we find that these can be really simple shots. It can be you with your product, using it. It can be you working in a natural environment. So laptops, papers, sketching, going through some books. It can be just your product sitting on a nice table setting and get some cool shots of it. And again, you can do all of this on your iPhone or Android or smartphone, whatever you have. So those are good things to try and capture. And again, you don't have to get highly technical with it. If you just kind of get some steady, nice shots, it'll break the monotony of you just talking to your viewer. So try to experiment with that and see what you can get. Another really great, and I'll show you guys some examples of this as well, but another really great way to break up content is if you have any pre-existing photos, videos, client feedback or testimonials. Let's say, again, if you're selling a shoe and you have catalog images from pre-pandemic when you could shoot stuff, you can totally incorporate that into your video. And there's really easy ways. You can just add a zoom effect and it looks really good. Client UGC. So let's say you have clients sending you photos of them wearing or using your product. Those are great things to intersplice into some of these videos that you're trying to make at home. And then obviously stock imagery. So there are a lot of great free resources, and stock imagery has improved tremendously. So it's not like those typical ones we used to see a few years ago. There's some really nice, authentic, appealing videos and photos you can incorporate. And I've put a resource in that we use a lot for some of our content, and it's great. So I definitely encourage you to kind of try and see what you can do to break up your piece. Once you've recorded the portion of you talking, try to see what else you can kind of add in to showcase your product a little more and to get your client to really engage with what it is you're selling. So the last thing I just wanted to do was share some tools and resources you guys can use at home. Obviously, your smartphone or laptop is great for recording. You don't need a fancy camera. Oftentimes, on Amazon, you can buy a really cheap tripod for either of these, which just helps with stability. It helps you frame things up a little better. But if you don't even want to do that and you're just starting out, books, stools, just pile whatever you have at home. They can raise or lower things and you'll be good to go. And then apps for editing. I would say iMovie is really great for basic editing, super easy to use. And it can do some of these really basic effects, like I said, the zoom in, the zoom out, without you really having to learn too much of how to edit. So drop your stuff in iMovie, you can add some cool text, some opening titles, and it can work out really well. QuickTime, Screencastify, all these are great for screen recording. So if you have an app or if you have a SaaS platform and you want to get some screen recordings of your platform in use, you can use either of these for some quick recordings. And then some of the other ones I listed here, I really like Canva for designing out just opening slides at home. So if you want to just, or putting your logo at the end with some fun little graphics, Canva can always just be exported and added in as a photo. And then Artlist is a stock music video library. So music is always a great way to communicate kind of the tone and the vibe. So Artlist has free, stock music that you can use and drop in. And then Pexel is what I mentioned is for free images and videos. So that's a really great one that I like using for at-home content to kind of elevate your videos and the content you're making.